Welcome to Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I am your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Steve Dedrick from Endemic Environmental. So he's a landscape designer and native plant specialist based in Adelaide in South Australia. And it's a great message throughout this chat about trying to get more people involved with the environmental way of doing things and sustainable and what did he call them? The future gardeners. So he's looking to promote what he calls future gardeners, which are people who are looking to dedicate their career to a brighter future. And he's looking to have his own podcast as well, where he's talking to those people and promoting them, which is a great thing to do. And I spoke about the people we've had on who have a similar message, which is awesome. And then there's more people like him coming along and educating others to do the responsible thing with gardening. And it was great hearing how he developed that particular passion within the landscape industry early on, and then chose who he went and worked for that particular style as well. And it was back in, I think, 2005. So it wasn't as popular or common as what it is now, but he's been doing it for a long time. He's got more than 20 years experience. And he's actually just, when this comes out, he'll have just had sold out a workshop that he's running as well. So be worth giving a follow so you can catch up with when he's doing the next one, because he's a wealth of experience and certainly can learn a lot from him. And his designs are pretty cool to look at as well. So he uses an app called Morpholio Trace. So it's like doing hand drawing, but on an iPad or a tablet. So I think Matt Heiner does that as well. So he was a guest we had early on who does some pretty beautiful stuff. So it's a mix between, computer design and hand drawing. So looks pretty cool, and it helps with his creativity being able to flow using that as well. So some interesting things to hear in this chat with Steve. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Steve Dedrick.
So that's a recent job we designed in Wollonga here in South Australia. So it was a bit of I think it was around half an acre. So it was a real big one to sort of sink my teeth into. And we end up putting in about 3,000 plus native plants, so from tube stock, and creating like an entrance way where it was like a native meadow.
Oh yeah.
So to speak. Yeah, like a real dense section, and then making like in the area sort of leading up to the house, open woodland sort of vibe as well. So less density, but sort of creating like a mallee open woodland with select trees and whatnot. So it was like a really fun one the clients were really special, so that they were like on board with it, with all the ideas, and it's still ongoing. So there's more plants to go in. So there's also like a little food forest section to do, and a little herbal garden too, and
cool.
and all the timber as well was milled on site. So from what they've got, like a beautiful creek line running through there. So everything was pulled up and milled there. So lots of fallen logs, and especially through that time that it was happening and we're working with the contractors, some high winds come through and some wild weather that brought down a whole heap of stuff, and so they got milled too.
So did they let it sit there for a while to dry out?
Some of the bits were already dead, so there was like a couple of dead limbs that come down, so we're able to turn them into benches and whatnot. So it was a pretty multifaceted sort of project that was really interesting, and it's still ever evolving. So we're just talking to the client today because we're trying to get together this native lawn instead of using like traditional kikuyu or couch or something. We're trying to seed some native lawn, and sort of in the infancy of like making that work, and putting in some dichondra as well with it. So
we had a job where we're supposed to be using native lawn, but then the clients changed it. But I've got a bag of the seeds sitting in my shed because they were going to be using it. Can't remember what it is, but the second name of it is Stepoides.
Yeah, Microlina.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's like it's definitely like I'm interested to explore it a bit more, and just obviously you're never going to get the real same appeal as like a traditional kikuyu or a couch, but we're trying to like pull people away from that a little bit, or give that option that open space can be a bit different, and we don't always need to use the traditional lawns because trying to promote that increased biodiversity within our residential spaces, because I guess a lot of the impact that we can make within our suburbs is within our residential and home gardens, where us as humanity can make a big difference in that space.
Yeah. It's like a lot of the time, especially in front yards, people don't even use that lawn that if they have it in the front yard. So that's a perfect space for it to give it a try.
Yeah, for sure. It's and I think people would be surprised how underutilized lawns are and how much water and they need to stay alive, when even if it's just a minor to major reduction, makes a huge difference.
Yeah. All right, I did the same with Malcolm. When I started the episode, I thought I need to put that in, so I'm going to put that. I'm going to have to edit that
yes
as well.
Sorry, mate.
No, that's a good. I'll get stuck into it straight away, because I don't miss any more gold. But Steve, thank you very much for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
Good question. Very young, I guess. I'll probably take it back all the way to high school, when my dad and my uncle were pavers. So, I grew up knowing paving and sort of seeing dad and my uncles do it. Both of my uncles were doing it at the time, and then once I was in high school, they all sort of teamed up together, and I used to, on my 2-week holiday breaks, go and work with them, earn like $8 to $10 an hour or something like that, which I think was pretty good back then. That was like
more than I started on.
Yeah, well, that was still in the 90s, so yeah, like a bit of pocket change was good. So that led into sort of, after that, really just when it come to sort of like traveling and enjoying the nature, I had some friends that really liked hiking as well. So, getting into that, and then working as I really wanted to get into conservation. So that was sort of my initial starting point, was wanting to really like make a change in the environment. So I started working with a local native plant nursery called Provenance, and at the time they were doing a lot of revegetation work as well as doing nursery work. So I was able to jump onto a couple of their teams there, and I was hooked straight away with that, because it was, obviously the repetitive nature of it, but I was able to tune out at times and just plant and feel like I was doing something really, really cool and for the planet, I guess. And I was still able to, have pocket change for the weekend. So that sort of led me into, after that, I sort of wanted to travel. So I was still maybe like around 19. Before that, I did a adventure recreation course, outdoor tourism course at TAFE, and I loved that, but I quickly realized I wasn't really into the tourism side of things. So I ended up moving to Airlie Beach up in Queensland, just because I wanted to get out of Adelaide, and started Greencore. Do you remember Greencore?
Yeah.
Started Greencore. My mates had done it, and they said it was rad. Like you get 6 months of doing all this nature conservation, and you get half decent pay. So I started that, but then a month into it, I got a traineeship with Queensland Parks and Wildlife Service. So I was like, see you later. And then that was in Conway State Forest, helping to build a 40 to 50K bushwalking trail. So that was me for the next 2 years, and then, sort of got led on to getting a ranger job, which was always my dream, was to become a park ranger as a kid, which was like really cool. But then, the lure of Adelaide was a bit too much, like having my friends back here and wanting to play music and whatnot. So I come back here, and I swung back into sort of the conservation side of things, working for native plant nursery I'd worked for previously, and helping in that space, and sort of learning the ropes of how that all went about, delivering, tube stocks and sowing seeds and whatnot, and managing that whole space. And then I ended up getting a job with a landscape company called Urban Sustainable Landscape. So that was my real proper introduction to landscaping. And yeah, I found it, sort of was hard work, but I'd seen paving before. So it was like everything below paving wasn't that hard to me.
Yeah.
So the paving was, I enjoyed at that point, I enjoyed laying pavers. But this side of it was cool because I was like, all right, I'm starting to learn about how to source materials better, how to keep trying to keep in a circular economy within your own little system, using recycled materials. This was like 2005, I think. So yeah, and it wasn't long into that job that the site manager quit, and then I got asked to manage a bunch of townhouses that were being built, like real, how those townhouses, and you get those consecutive ones that you have to sort of knock off in a certain time, real high pressure sort of stuff. And I was like, yeah, stuff it, I'll do it. So that was that sort of taught me the ropes of like how to manage time and how to really sort of like function within that little team and manage people, which was a hard thing. So that sort of led me into creating my own business back in 2013. So since then, it's morphed into so many different sort of components up to this point where I'm now like really focusing on garden design a lot more and sort of where I need to be in terms of creating ecologically healthy gardens. So I guess that's the background in a nutshell. Yeah.
So when you started the business, were you doing landscaping as well, like doing the whole kit and caboodle?
Yeah. So when I started, I wasn't really putting a cap on anything. I was just like, I just need to take work.
Yeah.
And I'd like subby out here and there, try and, make the work, come through and make the week ends meet. But I also fell into some, natural management sort of contracts where I was working with councils doing weed management, and that sort of kept me going for a while. I quickly worked out that I didn't really want to work with herbicide anymore, and I'd done it quite a bit through my previous employer with the Sustainable Landscape. We worked with 7 years there, but we'd gone into the revegetation sort of landscape there, and we're planting thousands of trees and doing a lot of weed management. So yeah, it was sort of a personal decision that I didn't really want to do that anymore. So I pivoted towards landscaping a bit more and started finding a lot more of the nature play sort of jobs as well. So I naturally started developing, that design sense as well and drawing things up. But realistically, it wasn't until a few years ago that I really started, 3 to 5 years ago, I started really using the programs properly and exploring where I fit in that, what was my mode sort of thing.
So you're pretty much self-taught in your design? Like there hasn't been anyone you've been taught on?
Yeah, I've gone to TAFE and done like various courses and stuff. But I guess I would say I get my inspiration online mostly, and then watch what other people do, but then I've always been really try to be really staunchly original if I can, and find somewhere where I'm comfortable with, and where do I fit within all of this, and I found that in terms of, like I worked out that my sketching was where I enjoyed most. So I sort of followed with that, where like I was previously doing plans in layout and trying to do 3Ds in SketchUp, and I was just sort of hating it a bit. Yeah, it just wasn't my mode. I know a lot of people sort of jumped onto that now, and some of the work looks amazing. But yeah, I was thinking, like design is design, and it's always there, no matter what it looks like. So as long as you can sort of still portray it in a particularly well thought out sense, that it'll hopefully come across.
Yeah, I've said that a few times about all the fancy 3Ds and you're comparing that to 2D and all that, but it really doesn't change the actual design. It's just about the presentation. But if you're not enjoying doing the layout and SketchUp, but you enjoy doing the sketching, then you're going to be a lot more creative and have better ideas that come flowing because you're enjoying the process of it.
Oh, for sure. And there's something real cathartic about it too. Like, obviously there's a lot of like blockages as well, where you're just like, I've got to get this done. And like, you just can't, but that like, you just keep on it, it'll come. Like, there's just that unlocking those little doors that get you to where you need to be within design, because it can be like that, where you're sort of like, especially when you're dealing with so many different angles and wishes and different site sort of aspects and whatnot. There's so much to think about that, and you don't want to do it wrong, and you want to do it as well thought out as you possibly can. So yeah, and I agree. Like, some of the designers that I look up to or am influenced by don't really go that 3D route anyway. So once I sort of got inspired by that, I sort of was like, all right, well, I don't have to be there, because sometimes the industry can railroad you into certain atmospheres that you don't need to be in.
Yeah.
And, like, staying true to yourself and being really confident in what is important, I think.
Yeah, it's the same in the construction side of the industry, where a lot of people do like a certain type of paving or do it a certain technique, and you ask them why they're doing it, and say, I don't know, it's what other people are doing, so I thought I'd better do it as well.
Yeah, and it's easy to do, I think. Like, it really is, because and especially when there's particular trends happening, and clients really jump onto that too. So especially when like, for instance, the nature play realm, it's come to a point where there's so many examples now that most clients already have set what they want, sort of thing, so it becomes less creative. It's just sort of like cut and paste here and there. So yeah, the direction I've pivoted now is sort of, I really want, like, that Wollonga job I was talking about. That's really where a lot of my design work is heading as well, and sort of like engaging the right contractors to bring it to life too, which has been extremely enjoyable.
So with the design program, so you use Morpholio, is that right?
Yeah, Morpholio Trace, yeah.
So you can do hand sketches using that on an iPad, is it? How's that work?
Yeah, on an iPad. So yeah, it's really intuitive. It's like sort of like tracing paper, really. And once you get a hang of it, it's for me, it's pretty easy to portray what I need to get across. And it has its flaws, it has its things, quirkiness about it, but once you get past that, like for instance, today I had another problem with like exporting the PDFs, and then looking at the PDFs and going, that looks shit. You're like, where did the quality go? So it's sort of working out these little quirky things to sort of get it into your folders to the client as best presentable as possible.
All right.
So that's sort of where I get stuck a little bit, is the presentation side of it, where I'm like, all right, I've done all this work, which I'm really happy with. Now I have to try and like consolidate into a folder and send that across with the same quality.
Yeah, because in your head it's going to look awesome, but portray that to the client who's got the trust in you.
Yeah, sometimes it takes like longer than you actually think to put it all together and send it off. And once it's sent off, you're like,
yeah, and then you get an email back saying it looks amazing.
Yeah. Or it looks amazing, and here's 20 things we want changed.
Yeah. How is the program like with changes? Is it like, because obviously if you're just doing straight hand drawing on a piece of paper, it's not easy to make a change.
Nah, yeah. It's quite easy, but it still is a bit of a process, because it's all in your layer management, really. Just like I guess some of the other programs too. Which I sort of like grizzle at myself a lot when I have to go back and I've gone, oh, what the hell did I do here? Like, why did I do that? And you'll have like multiple things on one layer that shouldn't be on one layer, and so it's all in the layer management, and I've got it to a point where it's not too hard, but I need to I've made that clear within our design process that there's one or two alterations throughout the process, and then after that it's like if we want to make more changes, then we can. That'll be an alteration or an add-on, or we can bring that to the construction side and we can just note it all, sort of thing. So it's probably easier than the hand-drawn stuff which I've done before, and it's like, wow, how am I going to change this?
Yeah, I have a problem with layers on the design program because I'm self-taught on the ones I use. So
what do you use?
So I'm currently using Landworks CAD, but looking to change over to Vectorworks. But I just put every single thing on one layer. One layer. It's a little bit basic. It's not, so then, if you want to change.
I've done that before.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not the only one either.
Definitely not, mate. Yeah, I've heard Vectorworks is pretty cool.
Yeah, so I've got a landscape architect, and she used the older version of it previously, and now I've got the 2023 version, and she said that that's a lot better than the ones. But when you see someone using it, who knows how to do it with all the different layers, you think, oh, that's a really good way to do it. That looks like it works pretty well.
Yeah, it's pretty important because you got to get your spine, and then you color, like layering a cake sort of thing, and so that you can, if you need to like remove something, it's easy just to make it not visible.
Yeah.
But then like another thing in Morpholia which is a bit annoying is like there's a layer limit, so I normally max out that limit all the time, and then I have to work back from there to work out what I can merge or and the merging thing only just happened this year, end of last year, I think. So before that, you couldn't merge any layers, so which was really frustrating.
And so, how many layers is the limit?
Good question. I just see the big sign come up saying you've reached your limit. It's too late. Go back.
What got you into the sustainability side of things? The conservation. You said you were interested in conservation early on.
Probably just, I would probably maybe attribute it to always traveling when I was younger and enjoying fishing and camping and stuff. But for some reason, it was always in me to go, like, why the hell is this happening? Why is that happening? How come woodlands are being destroyed? So I always had something in me that wanted to go down that path. So within my career, I was always like, as long as I set parameters where like whatever I do in my job, in my career, has something to do with that or a lineage of that, that'll all fit on the resume, sort of thing. That was my thinking of it. So no matter what the job was, I would try and have it something to do with either the environment or sustainability or something like that. So, but I guess also music. I was a big Rage Against the Machine fan, so I like the protest nature of it as well. Yeah. So I guess that's where it's sort of like I wanted to really push myself into making some sort of a difference, whether that be initially I really wanted just to make like a small difference. So like, your impact locally is important. But now it's sort of come to the point where it's all about, helping to build ecology and, helping people to develop a ecologically healthy garden space within that they can engage with. And I think that goes a long way.
Yeah. So have you thought of how you can do that other than just doing your own designs? Like, is there any way you can educate other people about doing it? Like, things have certainly improved a lot since, say, 2005 when you started with that sustainable landscaping career. There wouldn't have been many around then compared to now.
Yeah, I guess like we didn't have social media like we do. It was just my Nokia or Ericsson.
Snake.
Yeah, Philips Savvy, and yeah. So I think like we have massive power in terms of social media. For instance, what you're doing, which is massive. You know, it's the landscaping podcast is great. You know, like I'm sure you've heard that before, but like it really is a good thing for the industry to be able to talk about it and be transparent. So you get people like myself and then other people from other walks of life sort of telling their story. Yeah, I guess social media can have its major pitfalls too, as we all know, but there's a lot of information on there. But I think if we can educate in a certain way and help people recognize that it's not that hard to attain and that you can do it, and there are people out there that you can turn to, that goes a long way too. But also just I guess it's an old cliche, you know, think locally, act globally sort of thing. There's community gardens everywhere. There's local groups everywhere. As soon as you start doing something, you know, for yourself and maybe for your family or others around you, that really reverberates. So I think it's that old saying of be the example. So I think if you do that, you can really reverberate that change, and even if it hits a few people, that makes a big difference, I think.
Yeah, because then you get that ripple effect going as well. And
yeah, for sure.
And it can be a bit overwhelming to see the amount of work that's got to be done to make big change. But people run a marathon one step at a time. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important. Like, I mean, I don't want to blow wind up our bums or anything, but as gardeners, designers, and landscapers, we have a huge responsibility going forward in this life and the way the world acts and whatnot, because we can make huge change, almost a revolutionary change within our own gardens, because that's where people live, that's where people dwell. People can go into a national park, go for a walk, but as soon as they leave there, they're disconnected with it again. When it's at your home, you're constantly in connection with it. So that can really change modes and change mindsets. So I think that's a huge responsibility and something that I think we should be proud to wear.
Yeah. I've had a few people on who I consider like world changers, like yourself and Malcolm Burse, Phil Withers, Ben Hutchison, Emmeline Bowman. There's plenty of people who are doing Indigenous and ecological ways of doing things.
All great episodes.
Yeah. Well, there's no bad ones, obviously. But,
no.
But yeah, there's people like that. There's more and more of them coming along as well. Like, there'd be plenty that I haven't mentioned. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the more there are, the better the world's going to be as well. And there's a lot more people who are being more responsible about the way they do things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great that you're giving a platform for that. You know, to because it's good to have all different dialogue and walks of life, as we talked about. You know, and we all learn from each other. So, and we've all been brought up a different way. So not everyone's, you know, way inclined straight away. So, but they might want just a little bit of that and learn a little bit from that, and maybe make just a small impact there that is big for someone else.
Yeah. And even my favourite Irishman, Peter Donegan, when he was on, he was talking. So the way he does it isn't the typical sustainable garden. So he'll build the gardens and they're sustainable. They just don't look like the cliche sustainable garden. So
yeah,
it's just another way to get more.
I did watch that one recently, so that was a good one.
Yeah.
And everyone does it their own way. Everyone's got their own character for it, and there's no, you know, I think everyone's got their own character, and that's what they need to bring out in their work, and not, you know, sort of follow the trends or whatever's popping at the time. Yeah, that and when you get into plant design and whatnot, there's so many so many species to choose from, like, and so many that can fit in all sorts of situations that you've got a whole open canvas to work with there. And if we all did wild gardens that all look the same, it'd be a bit boring.
Yeah.
So the overall encompassing thing for me is like ecological value and engagement for people that are either the homeowners or the renters or whoever's living in that space, and the people that they're connected to also.
Yeah, and I imagine with your business name being endemic environments that you get a lot of people who are wanting that. But do you have to knock any work back from people because they're not after what you provide?
Initially, probably, but I guess it's been such a long journey that I've taken this work or this work or this work, depending on where I was at the time, sort of thing. At this point in my career, I'm a lot more sort of like pointed in that. So yeah, it really has to sort of align. I'm going to look at everything, but generally, I've got enough indicators out there to tell you, what sort of service I'm offering and what your space will become, sort of thing. So and not trying to like you got to collaborate with the client, and they're putting a lot of their time and effort into it. So the collaboration is important, but also having the space to be creative too. So try and let the clients know before that, that there's a real creative process to this, and sometimes things are unexpected in terms of the creative process, and that's what makes it all tick. So yeah, I think the jobs, the projects we've had, particularly last year, and the ones that we've got lined up until mid-year or so, are all along that particular line of either residential or a bit of acreage that are leaning towards bringing in native habitat around the dwelling, whether it be Airbnb or the home, and then also leaning a little bit on the permaculture sense of things as well, and growing your own food and whatnot, but then also a little bit of land management in that as well. So it's multifaceted, which is totally where I want it to be and where it's the most interesting for me. So yeah, I mean, again, going back to your question, like, I will look at everything, but it really needs to be something that I can sink my teeth into. Otherwise, like, I'm not giving you my best.
Yeah, it's just a job.
Yeah, exactly. Like I worked out a long time ago, if I take a big retaining wall job with lots of paving, not saying there's not anything wrong with that, but like, that's not where I want it to be. If I do that and then keep posting about it, that's all I'll get.
Exactly. Yep.
So I had to. Yeah, it's all in that direction you want to go. When you want to pivot, you really need to look towards that direction and make it come to life.
Yeah, it's good when you can find where you want to, like, the direction that you want to head, because there's so many different things within landscaping, let alone all the actual different trades that we do within landscaping.
Yeah,
different facets of design that you can move into as well. So
absolutely, like, I've been doing this wider industry for 2 decades now, and it's only now that I've really like gone, yeah, this is where I want to be. And I'm, like, I've gone through so many different phases where it's like, is this really, where I want to be, sort of thing. And I wasn't sure right from the start whether landscaping was it at all. And I always had like other thoughts and dreams about, other jobs in the environmental industry and whatnot. But I kept at it and kept trying to develop what I was doing, no matter what it was. And once I worked out, I liked designing, particularly once I started finding my mode. That's when it became, it all came together where it was like, I'm really happy with this. This is great, and this is now I need to get over there, sort of thing. So that was like, it's really cool feeling to to fill that.
Mm.
Sometimes it can get really really lonely sometimes in the industry. I feel like if you're not really sort of like passionate about the certain projects you're doing. So yeah, I think it's come full circle again, where I'm back to the roots of, where I need to be building ecological gardens and whatnot. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a good question. It could get, there's levels to it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel bad for people who haven't found their passion.
Yeah, exactly.
Just every day is just basically, Groundhog Day, just going to work, doing whatever.
Yeah. You seem like you would totally enjoy what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Not all of it. I hate excavation. There's certain things I don't like, but yeah.
Do excavators enjoy it?
I could just get someone who's an excavator who loves doing his excavation only. There's there's guys like that around, but
then you have to supervise, won't you?
Yeah, and then anyway, no one can do things as well as me, obviously, because I'm the best at everything.
Yeah,
and I'm perfect.
Is that where you find hard to let go of?
Yeah, because I care a lot about the clients that we work for, so I hate other people making mistakes, even though I will probably make the exact same mistake. It's easier for me to make that mistake than to see someone else make it.
Yeah, so, I can fully relate to that.
So that's like, I don't have problems letting my guys go and do everything.
Yeah.
But having a subcontractor come in, because I used to have an excavator guy we used forever, and then he stopped doing it, and since then I haven't been able to find someone.
Yeah,
I've had one guy. We got him on a job, and he'd hit the water mains, and then the hot water system, like the hot water wouldn't work inside for the client. So what ended up happening was he'd dislodged some old rust in the pipe or something that had got clogged in the hot water system, blah, blah, blah. But the client came out saying, "Oh, the hot water system's not, there's no hot water. Like, have you hit something?" No, I tapped the pipe, but it wouldn't have had anything to do with it. So he was just sort of arguing with the client about it, where it was quite clearly that's what happened. You've hit the pipe, all of a sudden the hot water doesn't work. So that doesn't take a genius.
That happens more often than not, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I've had that. Yeah, I've had that where it's like all the paving's ripped up, and there's no responsibility taken whatsoever.
Yeah, everyone makes mistakes. Just do it.
Yeah.
And I tried another excavator guy, and he was swearing at the client because the client asked him something. God. And it's just, yeah.
You really have to be choosy, don't you?
Yeah.
It's one of those things like where you have to be comfortable with, especially that side of it, because things can go wrong so quickly, and they can be really dismissive about, like you're saying, and we've all experienced that. So I guess where I'm sitting now is like where I'm sort of getting other contractors to help implement. I get that sort of scratchy feeling where it's like I hope it all goes to how I've like developed it and planned it. I know like it's a hard one, because there's it's one thing to design, but it's another thing to implement. But having had that construction background, I sort of have a good idea of whether it can happen or not.
Yeah, it's also hard for you to portray everything, like in all the conversations that you've had with the client, to the person doing it. Like, it's impossible, basically. So something will get missed.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's important to have that constant communication and dialogue, which sometimes can get missed, and then everyone's like, well, what happened here? Yeah.
So how does that process work with you and people who are implementing it? Like, do you do some of the plantings and that yourself, or do you just do
I'll try and keep on to the planting contract if I can, just because I enjoy that and gets me out of the design zone as well. So, and I've had plenty of 2 decades of experience of plants, irrigation, mulch, soil, whatever. So I can do the irrigation too if I need to. But yeah, I like to come in last bit and just take all the credit now.
Take all the profit from the person
Yeah,
installed,
so
take the
he's
plants.
like, look at these plants. But no, I do try and keep that side of it. I'm happy if it doesn't. I'm okay if it. I'm not happy. I'm okay if it doesn't happen. But like I know I know how much effort I put into it and how much, especially with like plant lists and designs on paper is totally different to when you go source them from the nursery. Yeah. So you need to have that background, I feel, where you know what to swap out.
Yeah.
You know what's going to work. And when you get onto the site, like it's an untold thing. You can't explain it to someone how like you can change something, but it's still going to work with certain species. Or you go, all right, I'm just going to group this one here. Oh, that's going to look fantastic. You can't really totally explain that. So yeah, that's why it's why I like to try and be connected to that still. So when it comes to that point, we're a bit more fluid with it.
Yeah, because the person installing the plants could do it to perfection the way you're drawn it on the plan, but if you were there doing it in person, you could have improved it. Even though
I would have totally gone, yeah, nah, not that there.
Yeah,
move that there. Yep, those ones go around there. Yeah, totally, man. That's the way it goes, and unfortunately, you can't do it all the time, but try and hit it most times. Just so because and then you get such a you've done the design, but you get that lasting impact of like being able to put it in the ground too, or like at least lay it out. So just like that job at Willunga, it was like, yeah, I think it ended up being like 3,500 or just below that or something tube stock. We set up a planting day where we got volunteers as well and some of the friends of the property. So it was just a really fun day of everyone. Like the whole day I was sort of like laying plants out, and we had some advanced native trees too. And then the client put on some lunch as well, and had my family, my kids there as well for a period. So it was just like a really, really fun day that everyone remembers.
So you using the Hamilton tree planters or any particular?
We live in Adelaide, where it's like hard clay, or like those things don't work down here. I don't think. Yeah. No, we used an auger. Yeah, or just your elbow grease with a mattock, like the old school style. Oh, that's how I learned.
Yeah,
just the little mini mattocks and just smack it.
You seen those ones where they're planting in like deforested areas, and they just sort of they flick something into the ground, put a plant in, and pick up whatever the tool is, and then flick it in the ground.
Yeah, is that the pole looking thing?
Yeah.
I've seen them. Yeah, you have to have. Yeah, you really have to have real foamy dirt.
Yeah,
like don't you? Like down here, like you get in trouble big time. It's just that real sort of. This site wasn't too bad, but there was some real rocky bits as well where even the auger was struggling. So
yeah,
but we have the drill augers too. So I picked up one of those the big hardcore Milwaukee hammer drills.
Yep.
And you get the I think it's I can't remember what brand it is, but it's that blue auger piece that you can get, and that works for pretty good soil, but it's not welded too well. So if you're hitting rocks, like I've had a couple of them just like totally rip apart. Isn't good.
Yeah. Then you got a sculpture sticking out of the ground.
Yeah. But that any which way really. Like I mean, back when I was doing re-veg, we were doing thousands upon thousands of plants and just mini mattock, or we had the small steel auger, which had the small diameter auger on it and a long thin sort of piece.
Yep.
And they were pretty good. You can rip out quite a lot in a day.
So how does the process work when you do a design and the client wants it built? So have you got a list of landscapers that you work with and recommend?
Yeah. So I do, but I'm still like fine tuning this because it's been a transitional period getting to this point, and like, yeah, to be honest, it's been a lot of learning in terms of like how best to transition into that. When should I step in and when should I not, sort of thing. Luckily I've got like brilliant landscapers that I've known in the industry for a long time, and who have worked together or worked in the same business as well. So including like Malcolm, I never worked with him, but the last few years I've known him. So those contractors that will do a good job, but they also know me in terms of like and the style which I'm bringing about. So that's important as well, because it's like they know the ethos, and they're along a similar line in terms of that as well. So, which is important, because all those intricacies and details make a difference, especially when it comes to being sensitive towards where the soil and the garden beds are going to be, and making sure that they're clean, and that because at the end of the day, we can the hardscape side of things and whatnot are beautiful and great, but the plants and trees need to be the final hero. So, and if they're getting put into stuff that's contaminated, it's no good. So, and having that working relationship with people that their back history of like what they've done and what they've achieved is pretty that's important too. So try not to just pick anyone, and let the client know that I've got good relationships with some good contractors. So people that I used to compete with when I was doing that sort of thing.
Yeah. Have you got any employees, or are you still all yourself?
No, I'm back to just myself now. So which is like, I'm totally happy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like for now anyway.
Yep.
Like I said, I'm going through a bit of a transition, like needed to strip it back to build it back up again, sort of thing. And this is sort of like where I've been able to build my creativity again and just focus on that, which then translates into the projects we're doing.
Yeah.
Which is important, because going a few years back, like I probably wasn't creatively in a good space, and I wasn't really hitting it like I should, in terms of like consciously being creative and vibing on what we're doing. So not to say we weren't doing great stuff, but it was like, it wasn't like truly my character in terms of where I needed to be.
Yeah, I've had a few people say that at times they feel like they're working just to employ people, because you just got to, when you employ, you've got to do certain things that's not creative, to get the job done.
Yeah, like it's a bit of a train, isn't it? That roller coaster, it's hard to jump off. Yeah. So totally relate. And I feel like it's not me anymore for now. So eventually I would like to build that back up again, in only small, but like within the design sense. It'd be nice to have like a cool little vibrant team doing this stuff eventually. But for now, I need to like just focus on myself and my family, and knocking out these really, really cool projects that are really feeding me. Yeah.
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 One of your Instagram posts recently, you talked about doing a podcast of your own. Have you thought anything of
that? I'm not trying to tread on your toes, mate.
The more the merrier.
No, well, I've had a bit of an idea to do it for a while, in terms of sort of looking at what I would call like future gardeners, or people that are dedicating their careers to a brighter future, I guess. And whether that's in this industry or multiple industries, regenerative farming or organic farming, or just people who are growing local produce, local architects, or that are doing things differently. There's so many different people that I've connected with over the last 4 to 5 years, particularly when I started really making an effort to get to know everyone a bit more, and through social media and being a bit more active there, and having multiple chats with people like internationally as well as interstate as well, and just realizing that everyone's got similar ideas and really good stories, and that it might help others to like make that plunge to do something that they, or an idea that they might have. I think that's what's been missing, like if we go back to 2000 and the mid 2000s, like I felt like, especially the environmental industry and landscape industry, sometimes I felt like it was really hard to get info, and it all seemed unattainable at times, when I think like I would really love just to see people just give it a go, no matter what they're passionate about, whether if it's in this industry or whatnot, just go for it. And it's the same with like home gardeners and whatnot, just starting somewhere, starting with a small garden, just get it going, and then learn from that, observe and learn, and then teach others. So yeah, going back to your original question, it would be nice to start something. I've been sort of looking at it in terms of like how it could be like a bit of a sit down thing here in South Australia, and then doing like a different one for international and interstate guests.
Yeah, I'd certainly be one of your listeners. I'd love to hear it more about it. So.
Awesome. Yeah,
not enough Australian sort of landscape and gardening podcasts.
Yeah, and like people like yourself are inspiring in terms of getting it going. And I actually went back the other night and listened to one of your first ones, where you sort of were sitting there explaining, that this is your first podcast sort of thing, and you went through your story and everything, and it was like, that was it. Chuckle, because you were like, it was funny just seeing the parallels, and like, like just not knowing what you're doing, and then finding yourself, and then like making mistakes, and it's like, and I think it's important for people to understand that we're all going to make horrendous mistakes.
Yeah.
But the thing is to like not get too discouraged and just keep motoring on and learn from it.
Well, there's a solution to every problem. It just takes either time or money or both.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And I think it's like, for me, I started so early, like that I didn't really know what I wanted to do, to be honest. I just felt like I wanted to make some sort of impact. So you don't really know what you want even now. So like, I think there's too much pressure on, especially the youth, to like decide finally what they want to do. So it's just go out and give something a shot, and then see how you go.
Yeah, it seems like they're doing a lot more thoughts in it these days about career planning while they're at school. But when I went, there was no talk about working out what you want to do or what you're going to be good at. It's just, what do you want to go to uni for? Like what uni are you going to try and get into?
Yeah,
I wouldn't have a clue. I got no idea about uni.
Yeah, it was like count on your hands the careers that you want. Like I think it's important. Like I said before, when the question you said about where can we make a bigger impact, I think, and this is exactly it, sort of thing. Like, now that social media, or like visually, people want to know information, and they're just eating it up. So, but I think people just want to hear realness, not just like fabricated shit. What actually happens, like, and not like for instance, like your podcast being so transparent and having so much detail in terms of what people want to say. We never had that sort of thing, like there was never a reference point like that where it's like, oh, you got to do this or you got to do that, or I've done this and I've done that sort of thing. You only really got that through other friends or people in the industry that would divulge that. So it's a really good thing to have, because accessibility within any industry is really hard if it feels like there's a bit of gatekeeping going on, or the people don't want you to know what they're doing, and whatnot. But it's good to have that dialogue, I think.
Yeah, there are some people who are a bit like that in the industry, but thankfully they're the minority. But it's laughable when you see people who are like that.
Yeah, it's a bit of an old school sort of trait. Yeah. I'm glad there's like, sort of knocking down those walls now, and it's a bit more open.
Mm-hmm. But like you see young people sharing their secrets and the best in the industry doing it as well. So anyone who's not doing it is kidding themselves.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I agree.
Last question for you, Steve, is who do you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast?
Oh, geez. Oh, you've got me here. There's a couple.
Are you trying to save more of your own podcast?
Yeah. There's so many legends. I don't want to miss anyone out. What about an architect?
Yeah, sure. I haven't had an architect on. That'd be good. Yeah, because that'd be good. Because I like talking to people about, I like architects who actually think about the outside as well. Because not all.
Yeah. So Jane Hilliard from Tasmania, she runs architect business, and she talks a lot about enoughness, which is like, sort of like how much space do you actually need for your house?
Yeah,
and that coincides perfectly with the outdoor space too. So she runs Designful Studio and Homeful by Designful, and her content is amazing.
Yeah.
So I would definitely hit her up. It'd be a very interesting chat and something I'd like to listen in on. So
cool.
Yeah, sorry I didn't have anyone straight up. I should have.
That's fine.
But I'll get her on my podcast too. There's quite a few. Like, I'll send you a list anyway. But,
okay. Yeah, that'd be good
to knock off, because there's some real shakers and movers here.
Yep.
Which is good. Yeah.
So when are you going to start yours?
I don't know, man. I'm just looking at timing and how much time I got.
Yeah.
And the projects I still need to knock off, but it'll happen this year at some point.
Yep. Awesome.
Because I'm thinking of getting a little bit of production behind it, just some basic production that's sort of like, so it's like it's
more professional than this one.
Yeah, a little bit of a different vibe, because you're in this zone sort of thing. Like this is, I was thinking maybe like a sit down sort of thing, and maybe a walk through through the garden sort of thing. And
yeah.
It's
so much better talking to people in person as well. Like the conversations go a lot better.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking of starting it, then having like a a series where it is international, because it's good to speak not only from people at home, but outside of that. So I'm still working that out. I don't want it to be too rigid or anything, so just have it pretty free flowing, but also once people sit down on the couch and have a cup of tea, they just talk for hours. So I want to do that and not have to edit it. So
there's very little editing that I do in mine as well. So it's not a lot of. I think people think a lot more work goes into it than there actually is.
Yeah. I understand. Like you were saying, you just edit out the ums and ahs, which is can be a lot of work too.
Yeah, but it's something like you don't realize when you're talking to someone that they're saying it, but then for some reason when you've got headphones in listening to their voice more, you hear every single one. I don't know.
I've probably knocked out a few ums and ahs this trip.
Everyone listening won't hear a single one. I bet.
Fantastic.
Steve, I've absolutely loved having this chat. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing it. And I'm looking forward to following along and seeing what you come up with next, especially with the podcast.
Thanks, mate. It's been a pleasure. And like I've said to you before, like I watch this podcast. I think it's very important. And pretty chuffed to be one of your guests.
Have a good guest too.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, love your work too. Love your little videos and that. Like, yeah, it's great content, man.